Thank you for joining me today. My name is Nichel Anderson. I'm your host of my podcast show, Nichel Anderson Short Stories and Beyond. And this particular episode, this would be around about April the 15th, entitled Of a Day of Ezra Influence. It's episode 47. And this particular episode is clip snippet. This is where I do release the part of my short story. To become a Patron member, the link would be in the bottom of this episode description where you can get the full short story. And this particular clip snippet will focus on one of the prominent characters of my book, Mitsrayim. And that is a book that I wrote back in late mid-90s or what have you. And it's a book dealing with ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. And most of the episodes that I do here on this podcast, I have 2 podcast shows. And it focuses mostly on Mitsrayim, on those stories, how I expanded that particular time frame when I wrote the book. And I have produced that book into a theatrical production that's entitled Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt, where I did stage plays, short films, and so forth. So I like to go over that each beginning of my episodes and to share with those that just joining me today, and to continue to remind those that has been following this podcast, thank you for that, and to constantly give you any type of updates of what else that I'm doing. I'm still in the process of preparing for the return of Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt based on my book, Mitsrayim. And as soon as I get those dates ready to return back to stage, I will let everyone know about that. It's a bigger production. I'm bringing more of the characters from my book, Mitsrayim, as well. I've decided to bring maybe a few from the characters that are coming to forefront in this podcast series. So the podcast timeline for Mitsrayim MOLIAE is before the time of Princess Aamina, before she's on the scene. So you get to know some of the roots that caused the decisions that people made that impacted Princess Aamina when she came on the scene. So without further ado, I do have an app. You should be able to get the app on the Apple Store. I am updating my other apps. I rolled out 4 last fall. I was working on it so much during the whole summer break. And you should be able to get this podcast app at the Apple Store. I'm learning that you can't get it on the Mac, if I'm understanding that correctly, only on the iPhone. But anyway, you can get it at the App Store. It was on Google Play. As of right now, I'm updating. Yeah, it is on Google Play. It is on Google Play. The only one that's not on Google Play is the MOLIAE website that I did an app for that, which will come in handy when the prestige return of MOLIAE Stageplay, when that is announced. That's a good app to have because so many things people that's been in theater know. It's so many, especially when I'm trying to plan a bigger production, a lot of elements to it. It's like I say, a bigger celebration. It's going to be a lot of things going on. So to learn about the new cast and the types of things I'm going to be doing leading up to the play, you will be able to, keep abreast of that, since I am going to make an announcement on my 2 podcasts, and I make that announcement next month in May when I end my season. My season starts in September, and then it ends in May the following year. So I have 1 more month before season 2 wraps up, and I'll make an announcement of what I'm going to do with my podcast. But I will announce when the updated MOLIAE website app is available for you to download that, because that would be a good app to have, especially when I go live with the prestige return of MOLIAE Stageplay, to get in the loop of that. So let's go ahead and move forward. Let's do some highlights for this week. This week, episode 47, where we will focus on Ezra. He's a prominent royal member of the Mitsrayim royal family. He is the father of Nahor. Nahor is one of the main 5 characters that I talked about in my book, Mitsrayim, because you have Princess Aamina, you have the 2 king brothers, and then you have her friends, which is Nahor and Salma. So Ezra is the father of Nahor. All right. And in this particular episode, I felt to kind of highlight him. He got some really good play in the first season, some this season, but not as much, because it seems like I had to focus more on the Orions to go more deeper into that round part of the story. But this particular scene, he comes back in the forefront, so you get a little glimpse of his daily life living in Egypt. Okay, so the recap for last week was character profiles. I decided to do only 2 I ran out of time when I released the Atlantis production, which I'm excited for. It seemed like a lot of people seemed to like it when I looked at my stats, so please stay tuned. That will come back, most likely in a clip snippet type, where you'll get the full short story by becoming a Patron member. And I have my Patron page link at the bottom of this description. And when I wrote up an update on Mahogany, okay? So last week was based on 2 character profiles. I selected to focus on King Milan 2 weeks ago, and then last week it was on Hanee, the Orion from the Orions. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and get started in this particular episode here. Let's make it happen. All right, so let's begin. For this week of my season 2 podcast show, Nichel Anderson Short Stories and Beyond, for this week, episode 47, entitled Of a Day of Ezra Influence. Opening scene. At the Mitsrayim Royal Abbas Palace, we see Ezra, the high-rank herbalist and scientist to the royal family of Mitsrayim, approving the vows of herbalists of liquids from Palladians from his attendants for his inspection. Ezra is dressed in his royal rank attire with a solid gold plate chest plate decorated with emeralds, diamonds, along with sapphires and rubies to bestow on his rank and lineage from his family's long-standing connection to the royals of ancient Mitsrayim and beyond into Sumner. His back was turned when 4 of the king's guards entered the open plateau of the high herbalist room. When he turned around, he saw the queen's secret spy, Halleck, in between them. He nodded for only them to step aside for a moment so he could talk to Ezra. Ezra nodded and followed. Halleck and Ezra walked out to the open patio to the southwest of what was to be known as Ezra domain within the Royal Abbas Palace. Halleck spoke first. "Forgive me for this absurd to intervene of your duties, the great Ezra High Herbalist, pristine of Mitsrayim, but there is a matter I would need to inform you of such." Halleck spoke in the tone that only Ezra could hear. "Sure," Ezra responded. "You shall speak to me of this matter." "I request to seek to speak with the Queen of Mitsrayim. Is she able to see any this Apsu?" Nodding for a no, Ezra responded. "She is not. This moment and beyond is needed for the rest, as the new in her is growing and impeding of a greater more of her etherealness." "I see." Halleck spoke, looking out to the horizon as Apsu continued to claim the day forward. "What concerns you in the now, Halleck?" Ezra asked him. Pausing for a moment, he responded back to Ezra. "Captured some impostors attempting to enter a domain of Abbas Palace. Farther rooted, they seem to be of the ones a part of the regime King Milan. That is currently he is seeking in the midst to capturing those traitors." Ezra absorbed the information. Halleck continued by shaking his head to emphasize the concern of the captured males that they encountered. "It doesn't seem that is so for the most part now, but I fear that there are others that King Milan is not aware of." Ezra stepped back with concern. "I see to why you wish to speak with the Queen." Halleck looked out to the horizon and back to Ezra. He spoke in a very concerned tone. "I do not wish to cause much disruption, but I feel that I need to speak. We have the capture secured in our compartments, but I feel that there is another threat unknown to just the tribal leaders." Ezra nodded as he took in Halleck's expertise analysis. "Follow me." Ezra then walked to the side entrance of the open patio to lead to the hallway that several of Ezra appointed War High Council of Thea as soldiers that protected him and others on this level. Ezra walked into a room domain where higher attendants of rank underneath Ezra were working about, and some Thea members bowed their head as they noticed Ezra enter the domain room location. He motioned them to leave, but only one he said to stay. As he went to a solid gold table with 7 gemstones positioned in the realm of the domain of Tomato as Spoo, Ezra picked up one stone and repositioned it to read what it is to be. He suddenly turned to Hilek to ask, did one or all of them spoke with a voice from the north and western format underclothing of Faboe to those sunken of the island of Tara? Hilek slowly nodded yes. Their voice spoke of such, and the tone indicated where they came from. Ezra absorbed Hilek's confirmation before he spoke. Then Ezra motioned one of his high-top temple attendants that stayed behind to bring forth a papyrus for him to write in ancient Sumerian and Theo language on it. Ezra spoke in Sumerian to his Theo attendant and informed him to leave at once. The attendant did, along with some temple guards. Ezra then looked back at Hilek. We need to inform the general, second-rank officer, that there are others abound, and we must notify the queen of Mitsrayim, Hagar, for she must know of this threat has expanded before us here on Tamat. You and I will see that my notice to the temple reign appointed to the center of Sudan region will accept my influence to follow our lead for our request to know who entered the domain of Tamat. Hilek absorbed Ezra's position of move and his profound influence in the region. Meanwhile, in the busy roadways, many claystone buildings away from the royal palace, we see many males sharpening, about 16 of them working on their weapons. As they await their next words of authority to make against the ruler Mitsrayim, they are a bit nervous but determined to see it through for the wealth to bestow on them.
This concludes this week's clip snippet for this episode. If you would like to listen to the full story, please visit my Patron page. The information will be in the below description. Mostly every week, I will release only the clippet of the short story, and once you become a patron, you will have access to the full short story, what's going on next, and I do plan to release more director clip notes as well as a bonus of releasing a story. Thank you again for joining my podcast this week. Of this podcast, Nichel Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond. So long.